Hello, welcome back to Helpo. Today we're going to be looking at the listening portion of the HKDSE exam. The most common problem with the listening portion is overcompensation. So let's talk about what that means. Overcompensation is writing everything and repeating what is said with exact vocabulary. It means that after listening, you write everything or you include too much, or you use the exact vocabulary that you heard. Now, in our previous video regarding the writing portion of the exam, we discussed how important it is to use the vocabulary that you do know in a varied manner. And this is where we're going to see that being very important again in the listening portion, because you're going to want to be able to understand what words mean and then use a more varied approach to the vocabulary words that you know that mean the same thing. So let's talk about how to avoid this common error. The most important way to avoid this is to practice listening. It's important to practice listening, and you need to know that the difference between hearing and listening is that hearing is recognizing sounds with your ears, but listening is an active process. It means that you're actively thinking about what your ears are hearing. So let's talk a little bit about how we can actively listen. When you're actively listening to something, you're going to listen to less information, but you're going to think about the information in a deeper way. It's this deeper way of thinking about what you're listening to that means you're going to learn in a much more effective and efficient way. So what are the important things that you need to think about when you're actively listening? They are pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, and structure. Now be sure to focus on an area that you feel you're weakest in, and then work through the other areas from there, from weakest to strongest. And this skill is going to really help you improve your speaking because you're going to constantly be thinking about how native speakers talk. So let's talk more about active listening. We're going to talk about using each of these categories and being able to prepare and develop your vocabulary, your pronunciation, all of these areas before you take the exam. So first we're going to talk about vocabulary development and preparation. In order to develop vocabulary, you need to listen and make note of any new words or phrases. And you're going to listen to sections again, over and over again, and try to guess what the word or phrase means that you're unfamiliar with. You're going to check the meaning in dictionaries, write new words and phrases in a special vocabulary notebook. And then as you learn more, you're going to add meaning, pronunciation, collocations, example sentences, synonyms, antonyms, all of these things that are going to help you remember and understand the word or phrase. And the most important thing you're going to do in preparation is to review regularly. Now, after vocabulary, let's look at grammar development and preparation. Again, while you're listening, you're going to make note of any sentences that you do not fully understand. Think about why the writer used that grammar structure. And you're going to identify the grammar structure. You're going to check the structure on a book or in a website. And most importantly, you're going to try to use the structure when you're speaking or when you're writing. And again, review regularly. Now, in terms of pronunciation development and preparation, you need to pick one or two sentences that have some interesting pronunciation features in them. You're going to listen to them a few times, you're going to write down the sentence, and then you're going to try to mark up the features. Intonation, you can mark this with arrows up or down. You're going to link words that have connections. You can link those just by drawing a line from one word to the other. You're going to identify weaker and stronger sounds by using different colors. And you're going to need to recognize stress by underlining the stressed syllables. As you do this, you want to try to copy the features by mimicking what the features are as the speaker is talking. Now, looking at structure development and preparation, the first thing you want to do is note down any discourse markers. Discourse markers are words like firstly, however, although, for example, and so on. You're going to note the function of the sentences and how the speaker or the writer is using these words to structure what they say or write. And then you need to try using these words yourself to structure your writing and speaking. And as we move from that, we're going to move to preparation for idea development. All right, you're going to take note of the topic sentence. The topic sentences are the sentences that tell us what everything is about. What is the speaker talking about? What sentence have they said? What sentences have they said that tell you this is what they're talking about? This is what the overall conversation or paragraph is about. You're going to note how the writer develops the main idea with explanations and examples, because you're going to need to do this in your speaking and in your writing. Now use the same or similar techniques when you practice writing essays or speaking. So now that we've spent some time practicing and discussing the skills to develop active listening, all right, we're going to give this part of the exam a try. So starting with the scenario, you and Kitty have been asked to go over all the ideas and solutions that your class has generated and organize them into a table. Kitty has already started the table based on the class's suggestions, but you can't remember all of the information. You need to listen to the conversation between Kitty and yourself and complete the table. So this is what we're going to be doing. First thing we need to do is listen to the conversation, and we're going to use our active listening skills. So I'm going to play the conversation, and I want you to be using your active listening skills in the next 7 minutes.
I'm so sorry that I'm late. I had to meet up with Mr. Lowe, and it took a while to find him. Now, don't worry. I've already started our table, and I'm almost finished. But I can't seem to remember everything, and my notes are too messy in places to figure out what I wrote down. Ah, let me see if I can help you. Wow, you've got a lot done, Kitty. You are such a great partner to work with. Thanks. I've divided the chart into 3 sections. At the top of the chart, I wrote down the ideas that the class mentioned. Under the ideas, I wrote down what we were reducing. Now I'm trying to finish the last section, which is on what we can change to be more environmentally friendly. Now, I like the way you've organized this, Kitty. This is very easy to follow. Yes, but as you can see, there are some blanks in the last section of the charts. I need help finding this information. Okay, that shouldn't be too hard. Let's start with the first one. Electricity. Let's see what I have here in my notes. Here are my notes on electricity. I've written down that James said something about halogen lights being more environmentally friendly. That's right. I remember that now. Do you know how to spell halogen? Let me see. I wrote it down when Miss Lamb wrote it on the board. Oh, here it is. Let me see. It says HALOGEN. Can you repeat that, please, so that I can check and make sure that I spelt it right? Sure. It's HALOGEN. Oh, thanks. I think that finishes the first column of our chart. In the second column, I know that we talked about plastic bags, but some students talked about plastic bags and then others talked about something else. And I wrote it down, but I can't find it anywhere. Oh, just wait. Oh, I know what it is. Cherry said something about that it wasn't just plastic bags that were a problem. Let me see, I've written this down. She says, let me see. She uses the word, plastic containers. And she's talking about the plastic containers that we have in our school lunches. That's right. containers. That's the word that I was trying to find. Do you know how to spell containers? No, not at all, but Miss Lamb wrote it on the board, and I wrote it down from there. Let me see, it's here somewhere in my notes. Ah, here it is. I even wrote it in green. Here it is. CONTAINR. Did you get that? Yeah, I think so. Oh, no, that's not right. I missed a letter. Let me see. I missed the second last letter. Should have been E. Let me spell it again for you. CONTAINER. Did you get that, Kitty? I sure have. Let's go on to the last column. I was going to write lunch company to describe the people who make and bring us lunch, but Miss Lamb wrote another word on the board and we talked about it, but I can't remember the word, and once again, my notes, because I have so many things from so many people, I can't find it. Let me have a look. Wow, you do have a lot of pages here, Kitty. It is hard to find stuff. But here it is. Oh no. It's hard to read too. But I think the word was catering. I think Miss Lamb used the word catering. Do you remember the word catering, Kitty? Yeah, I do, but I don't know what it really means or how to spell it. Well, I'll give you the spelling of it. It's spelled CATERING. I'll spell it again. CATERING. And let me see on the back of this paper. Here we have written down some of the catering. Catering, it says, are people who bring you lunch or bring you food. Oh, I get that. I can understand that. Well, I think that just about finishes us off. What do you think? Yeah, I think we're done the chart, and that's what we had to do, and we need to give it back to Miss Lamb, and then she's going to give it to the Student Union President for us. I hope it helps. Oh, it will help. We have some really great ideas here.
All right, so now that we've listened to this conversation and we understand what has been discussed between you and Kitty, let's look at the chart that they were filling out. And we're going to also look at what we were listening for. So starting with what were we listening for? One of the things we should have really thought about was environmentally friendly actions. In the listening, if you were actively listening, you were recognizing that those are the things that you and Kitty are making note of in your charts. Halogen lights, plastic bags, plastic containers. Now, containers is one of those words where you might think, what does that mean? Well, from the listening, you can figure out what the word means. It most likely means something that holds liquids or other things. It's something that you can store things in or put things into. Now, I came to this conclusion because I heard the speaker talking about bags before they led to this word. Then the speaker talked about how the containers are used in school lunches. Therefore, I can assume that the containers are similar to bags in that they hold something, but they are different because they can hold lunches or liquids and other things that are in lunches. Now, later on, you get a better idea of what that means because the reading and listening, the speakers, they're telling you, right? But as I'm actively listening, I'm making notes of these kinds of thoughts. So then next we have catering. Catering is a word that they weren't too sure about, right? And one of the things that they said, lunch company. So if you can think lunch company, catering, what does that mean? That means the people who bring lunch or food. And we are also told that again later in the listening. But we are given clues beforehand that we need to be able to identify, because not all of the listening portions are going to be this simple and provide you with this amount of definition and clarification. Now, as you can see, because in the listening, this is what you and Kitty were working on, you were planning to make notes in a table. A table is a great way to organize information and to make it more effective in recognizing things and connecting things. So if you can use a table in your thinking patterns, then you're going to provide yourself with a lot clearer organization, and you can make connections a lot more easily between things. Now, as you can see, as we went through this process, we've divided things into electricity, things that reduce electricity use; canteen, things that reduce plastic use; and lunch, reducing plastic use, right? So these are the words that they used. Canteen and lunch are pretty much very similar, right? A canteen is a lunch room. A lunch is the food that you need. Both of those places can reduce the use of plastics. All right, so what they've decided to do is organize their thoughts a little bit more clearly. So underneath electricity, they talked about changing lighting, talking about using halogen lighting, right? All right, the lighting that is used prior to that is incandescent lighting, which pulls more electricity. Therefore, the halogen lights are better. Now, because I understand this, right, then I can say, okay, these are better for electricity use. But if I don't know what a halogen light is or what an incandescent light is, this is something that I need to write down in my notes. I need to discuss. I need to think about what those possibly mean and how they may or may not be different. All right, and if I'm preparing, then I can look them up and I can find this information. Now, if I'm taking the exam, I can figure out that halogen is a type of lighting based on what we heard said in the speaking. Now, let's move on to plastic use. All right, one of the things that we can draw a conclusion about is changing from plastic, right? Now, this is something that we recognize as part of their lunchroom. In the speaking, while you and Kitty are discussing things, you talk about the lunchroom as one of the places where you can reduce plastics use. So obviously you're going to change from plastic materials. How can you do that? We're going to make the conclusion that you can use renewable materials. You can use reusable plates for snacks rather than using plastic, right? And then lunch. Changing how we eat lunch is going to be an important way to manage. And we can do that by choosing a company that only uses recyclable materials or environmentally friendly materials, or things that do not use services that cause issues by using lots of plastic materials and things that aren't recyclable. Another thing you can do is maybe not use such services. Perhaps you can employ others who consistently take care of things. For example, if you are using a company that uses a lot of plastic materials, perhaps you would be better served by what? Employing someone to wash dishes. Then those reusable plates and dishes are more easily cared for because they are washed and reused. I hope this discussion and examination of the listening portion of the exam has been very helpful to you. If you find these videos helpful, then please feel free to seek out one of our fantastic tutors. Oh my God, did I just say? Please feel free to seek out one of our fantastic tutors at www.hihelpo.com. Thanks. See you next time. for the listening portion of the exam.